Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Better Satellite World, the podcast of Space and Satellite Professionals International. I'm Lou Zaccarella. This podcast is brought to you through the generous support of Eutelsat, EchoStar Hughes, and Access Intelligence. Additional support comes from the 3,000 members of Space and Satellite Professionals International and its chapters around the world. Thank you, SSPI. This Better Satellite World Awards interview series is sponsored by Mansat and Milbank Law. In December, SSPI named recipients of this year's Better Satellite World Awards. While the annual event in London went virtual in 2020, it was a smash with record viewership and a holiday feeling brought out by SSPI's UK chapter and recognition of three extraordinary examples of how satellites change the world. Well, today we're going to hear from the third recipient of this award. Since 2018, roughly 2 million farmers in India have received loans based on a data analytics product invented by a team led by a seasoned space industry professional turned entrepreneur. His company, called SatSure, has benefited an additional 400,000 farmers because of its ability to have the insurance claim settlement process move faster. It's a big deal. Prateep Basu is the Chief Executive Officer at SatSure. He's an aerospace engineer from the Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology, and he worked as a scientist at ISRO and also as a geospatial industry analyst at Northern Sky Research prior to getting the bug and starting his own company. That company has had a rapid impact in India and did receive the Better Satellite World Award in London. Well, I had a chance to speak with Prateep Basu during Diwali, the Indian Festival of Lights. Well, I hope you enjoy this final interview of the series. And now, my conversation with Prateep Basu of SatSure.
Thank you, Louis. Thank you. It's an honor to be one of the recipients of the Better Satellite World Award.
Let me ask you though, since you're the architect of the product, Prateep, what problem was SatSure attempting to solve when you designed this business model? What were you thinking about?
Right. So the high-level problem statement that we set for ourselves when we started SatSure was to enable financial inclusion of smallholder farmers. Now, the tenets behind it is that as more and more impact of climate change is seen, whether it's the frequency of droughts or floods, the resiliency in the agriculture sector is very, very important. And unfortunately, with countries like India and other parts of Africa, Southeast Asia, the financial aspect of empowering smallholder farmers, which is essential for them to both invest in their farm and recover from the climate shocks, is very little. However, we saw the opportunity of using technology to enable both agility and agility in deploying capital, in identifying the undeserved or unserved farmers who never had any credit history in the past, who are not part of the institutional financial systems, and how our technology can help banks and insurance companies reach out to these farmers, onboard them by estimating the risks better, and also service them, because these are people who are living in really remote parts of the world, right? Mm-hmm. So with that in mind, we designed our entire solution, where satellite data, which is imagery from satellite, plays a very critical role. But it's not the only source of data. We combine that with other forms of data, whether it is financial data, weather data, and public data sets, to make a comprehensive solution that can help these farmers to not only get access to low-cost capital, but also be advised about better growing practices, more sustainable growing practices, which essentially together forms the entire paradigm of not just food security, but also nutrition security.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. You're an aerospace engineer, as I recall. And were you thinking of this from a technical perspective first, or were you thinking about the business model and the needs in the marketplace, or was there some more human need dimension where you saw some suffering? And the reason I asked that, Prateep, is because the initial way that I think SatSure hit our radar was actually based on an article that we read, I think it was in Via Satellite a couple of years ago, which reported that I think 12,000 farmers in India committed suicide every year because their farms were failing. They couldn't get the financial instruments they need. Climate change was obviously impacting the whole dynamic of the financial model. Which one of those three, I mean, that sort of was behind your sort of initial thinking on this? Was it the aerospace engineer in you, the businessman in you, or sort of just the person who saw a tremendous need in your society?
Actually, it was the latter because as an aerospace engineer, previously I used to work with the Indian Space Agency and I was a propulsion engineer. So I had nothing to do with Earth observation data or agriculture. But it's the need of the hour where you know that perhaps this is a problem, which is essentially the lack of resiliency, climate resiliency in the system, the lack of actual finance being pumped into it could be solved using satellites, which may not have been my core competency. But again, the ability to understand and create a business model where we can create social good while also creating commercial shareholder value was very strong. So the entire genesis of the company was problem driven rather than technology driven.
And having said that, of course, I cited some of the recognition that you've received, which is just remarkable. Are you pleased with the progress of the company, not as it relates necessarily to the markets you serve, the financial, banking, insurance industries, but as it relates to agriculture and that sector, the needs that you were trying to address? Are you pleased at the moment?
No, the answer is both yes and no. I am pleased with the progress we have made with the amount of resources we had. We are a company which never raised venture capital, and today we are servicing farmers and financial institutions in 7 countries with a team of 50 people. And I'm not pleased because I think we can do a lot more. We need to you need to continuously contextualize how our solution will be mapped to the localized problems, because no one size fits all. When we are working in Kenya or Myanmar or Philippines, the way in which we operate in India doesn't necessarily work. So there is a lot of customer education that needs to be done. There is a lot of policy making push that is required, and I see a lot more we can do than what we have achieved till date.
Yeah, for some reason I thought you were going to say that. Could have guessed that answer, knowing you. Let me ask you this. SatSure is focused on infrastructure support is under its latest description. Can you describe what this market needs and what SatSure is doing to support it? Because it sounds to me like infrastructure support is sort of your next the scaling, so to speak, of the business model. Do I have that right?
Absolutely. So when we looked at the problems right from the beginning, we always saw the sustainability nexus of food, infrastructure, water, and energy. Now, while we are solving one part of the problem, infrastructure, especially in the rural areas, is a very critical need, whether it is roads or buildings. This is another area where we have started working again with the same set of customers, banks, insurance companies, to provide them support on the following aspects: helping them onboard these customers in a manner where a person sitting in a city can do the customer onboarding of someone from a rural area without having to visit that place, by using simple spatial analysis. Number two, by using satellite imagery to look at the progress of the constructions that are happening, so that there is transparency in the system. There is also efficiency in the way both capital is deployed, as well as the impact of the project itself is better understood. And number three, when there is a loss, whether it is loss due to flooding or loss due to any kind of natural events, the estimate of it can be again done remotely, and the necessary compensation we provided at the right time. So if you look at it, the theme is very similar. We are still focused on rural infrastructure, which is very critical for even the farm sector to progress. Just that our usage of the imagery changes. We go from low spatial resolution satellite imagery to high spatial resolution satellite imagery.
Right. So nothing has changed fundamentally in the platform for this. You just make some adaptations, obviously, to service that part of the market. I have to ask, with regard to the onboarding platform, and you mentioned transparency in the system, are those proprietary to SatSure? Did you guys develop new processes and new algorithms to accommodate those? Because those things seem to be two of the most important elements.
Yes, absolutely. We had to develop those ourselves, because the entire point of making satellite data usable is to integrate software elements, integrate business processes along the design of the entire system. So satellite data plays the most critical aspect, the remote monitoring aspect, right? But everything else around it, the packaging comes from different sources, so that a person who is not a traditional user of satellite data doesn't feel the barrier in his mind to be actually using it.
Right.
Hence, we developed the entire system. Yeah.
Yeah. And ease of use, of course, is going to be critical, because, you and I like to think about satellite and all the complexities of it, but the customer really doesn't. They could care less. Now, you mentioned the company, the organization is growing, certainly since the first time you and I met. 50 people, I think you said. Now you're in 7 nations with the service. Still self-funded. Is there any plan to raise capital? Are you going to go to the markets?
Yes, I think now is a good time to raise capital for us. I mean, we have built our own P&L, profit and loss statements, and we have shown enough amount of traction on the business model that was not very traditional, because most companies in the Earth observation domain, they either focus on generating the data, which is launching the satellites, or they are looking at marketplace platforms. Whereas we were looking at solutions, which is not really consulting, but also not really platforms. These are software products. So as the success that we have seen in these geographies where we operate definitely gives us the necessary courage and confidence to go and raise capital to scale these further and bring our solutions to places where the need exists.
Yeah, well, if any of my venture capital or PE friends, strategic investors, are out there listening, we can tell you how to find Prateep. Is that okay if I say that? Well, I guess I just said it. So.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Louis.
Okay. Let me ask you this. What do you think is going to be the greatest challenge to the business model over the next 18 to 24 months? Obviously, COVID has thrown a huge wrench in everybody's plans, but including COVID, what would you say is going to be the biggest challenge to the model over the next 18 months, say?
Well, surprisingly, COVID has had a positive impact on our business. Our team actually grew by 100% in the last 8 months. So it doubled. So the reason is the necessity to have remote working capability, remote monitoring capability became very, very high post-COVID. Now, for us, to move forward from here, in the next couple of years, the challenges are less on a business model, because I believe we already have a good product market fit. the the challenge is more on business scaling. Business scaling meaning that this may sound funny coming from someone speaking from India, but we actually do not have enough skilled resources to
Wow.
have, yeah, both the domain expertise, domain meaning the industry domain which we are serving, which is at the at a confluence of finance, space technology, and agriculture. Then you need domain experts in AI, domain experts in software engineering, and sometimes you need people with who are deep generalists in all of these. So
Yeah.
this is one of the reasons why I feel both talent acquisition as well as talent retention becomes a challenge, because whoever is today working in SatSure, they're all brilliant minds, and we have to always look at how the initial core team's culture is also scaled, not just the revenues and the technology itself, in order
Yeah.
to build that
Yeah.
that mitigate the risk of HR. That's
Yeah. It really is all about the people and the skill set, right? I mean, that's why we're called space and satellite industry professionals, because it's the people that are key to this business. But boy, if you can't find them in a country of 1.2 billion, I guess I have to ask, would you be onboarding new hires remotely? Would you take someone from Canada or Brazil, um, and without even having them based in India, take them on board?
Oh yes, absolutely. We indeed
Yeah.
have a culturally diverse team. We have people from UK, Australia, Switzerland. I just mentioned to Anna before we started the interview that we are starting a US office next year, and a person to lead the US office from New York will be joining us from January.
Last question, Prateep. Um, Obviously, we have a lot of listeners from the satellite industry and elsewhere around the world. But if you're speaking to them now, what advances in the satellite industry at large would you like to see to help you accomplish both your social and your business goals?
Right. My biggest ask from the satellite industry would be from the satcom industry. The challenges around deploying IoT networks in remote areas is very high, and there are quite a few satellite communications companies who are working towards it. But the question always comes towards the affordability, because the regions which actually have the demand for services can't pay the price at which it is today offered. So we need to either look at improving the business models around it, or exploring technology that is cost effective over the life cycle, in order to cater to this demand. Because if you look at just the amount of transactions that happens globally on agriculture commodities, it is orders of magnitude higher than the entire space industry size. So if you are able to tap into a fraction of that, it's a big enough market to actually think about it. And I believe it would also give us a lot more flexibility to include IoT based information on soil and microclimates, etc., into our models as we move forward.
So what does that mean specifically? What would that mean? Better Earth observation technologies, more configuring the LEO fleets to accommodate what you need? Is that what you're talking about?
Right. So what I'm talking about here is the connectivity aspect of sensors
Hmm.
in remote areas, which can be both via LEO or GEO today. However, the affordability of this connectivity, the bandwidth, the capacity that we are speaking of, is not existing today to service
Right.
these geographies.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that's obviously a global problem, isn't it? That we're hoping that the satellite industry can really provide a solution to. That's we could keep going like this forever. And I'm a big fan of your business model, and I have been for years. I just wish more people knew about SatSure, and hopefully after today and the award, more people will. Well, that concludes my conversation with Prateep Basu, CEO of SatSure. The Better Satellite World podcast is brought to you by SSPI and its corporate partners, EchoStar Hughes, Eutelsat, and Access Intelligence, publishers of Via Satellite. Thanks again to Mansat and Milbank Law for their underwriting of our Better Satellite World Awards event. and these podcasts. Learn about our sponsorship of the Better Satellite World Series for 2021 by contacting Tamara Bond Williams at SSPI. We'd love to have you aboard. Additional support comes from the 3,000 members of Space and Satellite Professionals International. If you want to become a member, visit sspi.org. And if you're a student, your membership is free. To use this content and more podcasts, visit bettersatelliteworld.com and follow us on Twitter at SSPI and on LinkedIn and Facebook. On March 22nd, SSPI will host and launch its new Leadership in Turbulent Times series. These one-day ideas events with leaders and emerging leaders will discuss disruption and how to move with it. And the following day, March 23rd, SSPI will host its annual Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Join us as the industry recognizes men and women whose work and careers have transformed our lives. To register for either of these events, go to satellitehalloffame.com. That's satellitehalloffame.com. We hope to see you there, virtually, of course. For Space and Satellite Professionals International and our producer, Ana Gomez, I'm Lou Zaccarella. Let's make it a better satellite world. Take care, everybody.